Breaking news from around your world on this Thursday, May 23rd, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Hindu Nationalist Party claimed it won re-election with a commanding lead in Thursday's vote count, while the head of the main opposition party conceded a personal defeat that signaled the end of an era for modern India's main political dynasty. Official data from the Election Commission showed Modi's Bharatiya Janata party ahead in 302 of the 542 seats up for grabs, up from the 282 it won in 2014 and more than the 272 seats needed for a majority in the lower house of parliament. That would give his party the first back-to-back majority for a single party since 1984. Votes will be fully counted by Friday morning. The election has been seen as a referendum on 68-year-old Modi, whose economic reforms have had mixed results, but whose popularity as a social underdog in India's highly stratified society has endured. Critics have said his Hindu-first platform risks exacerbating social tensions in the country of 1.3 billion people. India's stock market surged to a record high on expectations of a second term for Modi's business-friendly government. British Prime Minister Theresa May faced mounting calls to resign in a backlash against her latest Brexit plan, and multiple reports indicated she could step down as soon as Friday. The resignation of the leader of the House of Commons, Andrea Leadsom, on Wednesday night appeared to have left May with no way forward. Leadsom was scheduled to introduce May's new Brexit plan on Thursday, but she said she could not support it because it could pave the way for a second referendum on whether the UK should leave the European Union at all, which she said would be dangerously divisive. The turmoil came as the European Union starts parliamentary elections that could see far-right populists and EU skeptics expand their power. John Walker Lindh, widely known as the American Taliban, was scheduled to be released on probation Thursday after serving 17 years of a 20-year prison term. Lindh, who's now 38, converted to Islam from Catholicism as a teenager and traveled overseas to study Arabic and the Quran. He joined the Taliban by the time of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks in the U.S. and was still in Afghanistan when the U.S. invaded the country, which had refused to hand over al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden. Lindh was present when Taliban fighters staged an attack that killed CIA officer Johnny Michael Spann, and he was captured in 2001 during the invasion of Afghanistan when he was 21. Critics expressed concern about his release due to reports that Lindh still supports global jihad. Federal prosecutors in New York City Wednesday charged Michael Avenatti with diverting $300,000 that his former client, porn star Stormy Daniels, was supposed to get for a book deal and using it for his own expenses. Avenatti represented Daniels in her legal fight with President Trump over a hush money payment related to her claim that she had an affair with Trump more than a decade ago, which Trump denies. Avenatti tweeted that he never misappropriated or mishandled Daniels' money, adding later that his agreement for representing her included a percentage of any book proceeds. In a separate case, Avenatti was charged with trying to extort as much as $25 million from Nike by threatening to expose alleged payments to steer star athletes to colleges Nike sponsored. The United States and China had a heated exchange on Thursday, with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo accusing the chief executive of Huawei Technologies of lying about his company's ties to the communist government, and Beijing saying Washington must end its wrong actions if it wants trade talks to continue. Pompeo told CNBC, "The company is deeply tied not only to China but to the Chinese Communist Party, and that connectivity, the existence of those connections, puts American information that crosses those networks at risk." Congress also moved Wednesday to provide about $700 million in grants to help U.S. telecom providers with the cost of removing Huawei equipment from their networks and to block the use of equipment or services from Chinese telecom firms Huawei and ZTE in next-generation 5G networks. The U.S. placed Huawei on a trade blacklist last week effectively banning U.S. firms from doing business with the world's largest telecom network gear maker and escalating a trade battle between the world's two biggest economies. Meanwhile, no further trade talks between top Chinese and U.S. negotiators have been scheduled since the last round ended on May 10th, when President Trump sharply hiked tariffs on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods and took steps to levy duties on all remaining Chinese imports. With no resolution in sight, Agriculture Secretary Sonny Perdue announced a $16 billion aid program to help U.S. farmers hurt by the trade war, with some funds to be used to open markets outside China to U.S. products. Farmers have been among those hardest hit by the U.S.-China trade war, although retailers are also warning that the latest round of potential tariffs will raise prices for many of their consumers. Stock markets worldwide fell sharply on Thursday as concern grew that the China-U.S. trade conflict was fast turning into a technology Cold War. A powerful tornado hit Jefferson City, Missouri late Wednesday, causing heavy damage in the state capital as violent weather swept through the state. Missouri Public Safety confirmed via Twitter that 3 deaths occurred in Golden City, although no deaths were reported in the capital. Across the state, Missouri's first responders once again responded quickly and with strong coordination, as much of the state dealt with extremely dangerous conditions that left people injured, trapped in homes, and tragically led to the death of 3 people, Governor Mike Parson said. The violent weather came after several days of tornadoes and flooding in parts of the southern plains and Midwest. Encouraged by a favorable weather outlook, SpaceX will try again to launch its first 60 Starlink satellites from Florida Thursday night. Upper-level wind shift that derailed the launch a week ago is not expected to be a factor, according to a forecast from the U.S. Air Force's 45th Weather Squadron at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. The Starlink payload is to ride aboard a Falcon 9 rocket from Launch Complex 40 into low Earth orbit. Satellites such as Starlink have to achieve a precise path and orbit distance. The Starlink launch is aimed at establishing SpaceX's own high-speed internet satellite network. The company is one of several big players trying to start new networks that use thousands of non-geostationary satellites to offer high-speed internet and other types of communication around the globe. The focus is on boosting internet access to rural areas first. The satellites are expected to deploy within an hour after launch, most likely over Tasmania. This will be the heaviest payload to be launched with the Falcon rocket. Tropical storm experts say the Atlantic hurricane season should be an average one. 9 to 15 named storms are forecast during the 6-month season that starts June 1st, according to NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which has been largely correct with its predictions in recent years. Of those, 4 to 8 will become hurricanes, and 2 to 4 will be major storm systems with winds of 111 miles per hour or more. The Atlantic averages 12 named storms a year, with 6 becoming hurricanes and 3 becoming major storms. The hurricane season will be closely watched because of its potential to take a heavy human toll, as well as rattle oil and gas markets across the globe. Over the past 2 years, storms including Michael, Irma, and Harvey led to scores of deaths and more than $250 billion in damages. They also sent U.S. gasoline prices surging, shifted global crude and fuel flows, disrupted production in the energy-rich Gulf Coast, and threatened crops. Last year had 15 named storms, 8 hurricanes, and 2 major ones, Florence and Michael. Both of those storm names have been retired from official lists. And that's your update for this Thursday, May 23rd, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for listening and for supporting this podcast with your generous donations. I hope you have a wonderful day.